Hello, beautiful humans. Welcome to the Human Beauty Movement podcast, your source for hope, healing, happiness, and humanity. My name is Jennifer Norman. I'm the founder of the Human Beauty Movement and your host. This podcast is here to guide you on your journey of self-love, empowerment, soul alignment, and joy. With each episode, I invite beautiful humans from all corners of the globe to join me for open conversations about their life lessons and the important work that they're doing to help heal humankind. Take a moment now to subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss an episode. I'm so glad you're here joining me for today's show. The path to wellness looks and feels different for everyone. Some seek advanced medicine while others look to plant wisdom, and others discover their own combination of products and modalities to support their own health. Today, I invite you to step into the realm of ancient healing to hear how one man is harnessing the power of plants to facilitate mind, body, soul well-being. Trinn Hatch is the co-founder of Jampha Tibetan Pharmacy. With a fervent mission to radiate loving kindness, he empowers individuals on their healing journeys through the foundational principles of Sowa Rigpa, Tibetan Ayurveda. Trinn's own transformation from severe PTSD and disability to wholeness without using traditional prescriptions inspired his intense exploration into plant-based compounds for health. By listening to this episode, you'll discover the foundational principles of Tibetan Ayurveda and how they inform a holistic approach to healing. You'll get insights into key herbs and natural compounds and how they synergize with the body's innate healing systems. And you'll hear about the future of holistic healthcare and how traditional healing modalities are becoming more integrated into mainstream wellness strategies. Before I begin, I'd like to remind everyone that this show is for education, inspiration, and entertainment. We don't give medical advice, and we don't treat, prevent, or cure any diseases. No one is responsible for your health but you. So if you have any questions about what's right for you, do seek the guidance from a licensed certified medical practitioner. And now, please join me in welcoming Trinn Hatch to the show. Welcome, Trinn.
Thank you very much, Jennifer. It's wonderful to be here with you.
You are quite an amazing human being. You had this healing journey from severe PTSD and disability to wholeness. This is so inspiring. And so I would love for you to share with everybody a little bit about your story and how it led you to where you are now.
Sure, yeah. Most of my life I was involved in private security and working with my physicality and my size. And, I'd become accustomed to that. And one day I was involved off duty whilst working in private security in an accident. I was assaulted and my leg was broken pretty severely. It got to the point where, as they were trying to operate on my leg, the doctors wanted to amputate it. And my mother was my next of kin at the time and said, no way, my son wouldn't like that. He needs to keep his leg. And they told her very clearly that I'd spend the rest of my life in a lot of pain and misery and wouldn't be able to fully heal. And what they would be doing would be patching things up and that my body couldn't take that trauma. And my mom said, nope, keep his leg. And she did. And for the next 5 years, I was on a revolving door of medications. I was taking up to 17 medications a day at one point, seeing a bunch of different specialists and trying to find a path to healing. But there was never a synergy between what the different specialists were doing with my medications. And my PTSD got really bad and I ended up on disability. And I spent 5 years or more like that. I hit rock bottom and realized that I wasn't going to find the path to healing that I was hoping for with what I was doing, and started praying and looking for alternatives, and was led within a few weeks of that time in my life to experience CBD and terpenes. And I started to experiment with those and use those for my own healing. Over the course of almost 2 years, I was able to get myself off of all of those medications, restore my health to the point where I was able to take myself off of disability and back to work, and to deal with the PTSD to a point where it wasn't affecting me in the workplace. And that was a huge, monumental feat for me to do by myself. And I thought, well, if I'm going to do something for the rest of my life, I may as well use the knowledge and the wisdom that I've picked up along the way and keep looking for more and help others on the path. And that led to my wife and I forming our company.
I want to say, wow, you really went through something very, very excruciating, and my heart goes out for your situation. And it's so wonderful that you were able to find relief and a way forward and really convert your pain into this new purpose of yours. I am just celebrating the fact that you found something that worked and that helped you to get off of this vicious cycle of
Yeah.
prescriptions and just dealing with symptoms and not necessarily the underlying issues, which
Mm.
can also be emotional, psychological, very much as physical when you're talking about PTSD and the like.
I had to spend a lot of time trying to figure out what would work for
Mm-hmm.
myself with CBD and with terpenes. And through that process of a few years developing products, I came to a realization that there was a huge sea of
Mm-hmm.
healing within the botanical and the mineral kingdoms. And I just didn't have any experience with or any knowledge of it. And I've strictly
Mm-hmm.
been working with cannabinoids and terpenes. And so I started looking at different ways that I could gain that knowledge. And the best I could come up with was to do a PhD program and learn botanical pharmacology. And I enrolled, and my wife was like, "No, do you know how long you're going to be spending studying?" I said, "Oh, it'll be a couple hours a day. I'll just get up early." And she was like, "You already get up at 4 a.m. What are you going to get up at 2 a.m.? Why can't you find somebody who can do this?" I just hadn't even considered that it was possible that there was someone out there that would fill that role, that would have a resonance with what we were doing. And she opened my awareness to that possibility. And I thought, well, we'll give it a shot. And so we said a prayer and did a little manifestation ceremony and wrote down what we wanted and asked the universe for it. And we said something like, we want to bring forth a master of botanical healing and somebody that understands the connection between the mind, the body, and the spirit. Somebody that doesn't have a huge ego, that wants to work for the betterment of humanity, not just for profit. All these different conditions that I thought would be obstacles to me being able to work with somebody in this capacity and head in the same direction. And within 2 weeks of us doing that, my wife got a message on LinkedIn from a gentleman named Amchi Tugtan Lekshi. And it said something like, "My guides have brought my attention and my awareness to you, and I see what you're doing with terpenes, and I would like to come and visit you." And my wife came into my office and said, "Sweetheart, do you know somebody named Amche?" And I said, "No." I said, "What does he look like?" And she said, "He's kind of looks like a mad scientist." And I said, "Oh, okay." Well, that sounds interesting. And she forwarded me his message, and I emailed back the email address that he'd given us. And that started a chain of communication that for about 2 years was every single day, many, many, many emails and context back and forth. And it just began this fast tracking to what has now become Jampha Tibetan Pharmacy. He was one of the first Westerners who was given lineage into Sowa Rigpa back in the 70s by the Dalai Lama. And he was charged with bringing that wisdom and knowledge back to the West and to adapt traditional formulations for Western physiology. And so he's been here doing that for the last 50 years. And now what we're able to express to the world is really an advanced expression of Tibetan medicine and Ayurveda, culminating his 50 years of formulation experience and carrying that wisdom and knowledge from a 2,500-year lineage of medicine, which is pretty profound.
It sounds stranger than fiction, correct? I mean, the logical mind says this is not
Yeah.
possible. How in the world could this happen? But there is something that is really just so powerful and magical and wonderful about the way that the universe works. And sometimes I wonder if the plants are listening to us, like if the plants just know and they have their own little neural network, and then they're able to communicate with the other folks that are just like lit up on the other side that essentially are saying, okay, yeah, we're supposed to be doing something together. I don't really know what yet, but something is telling us something is going on here that really is extraordinary. And we're intended to make this world a better place than it was. And this is the way that we're going to do it. Somehow it all just magically falls into place.
It really does. It does. That's what I've learned with Sowa Rigpa is the communication between the botanical kingdoms and the mineral
Mm-hmm.
kingdoms and the physicians is two-way. They're receiving information and they're transmitting it. And that communication has really refined the applied insight of this lineage for all of that time. And it's phenomenal, the level of intelligence that plants have. And the way that they're able to express that intelligence is, there's more than one way.
And it's the right word. It is intelligence. And we are just, I think, scratching the surface of really understanding it. I think that there's wisdom beyond what we can
Mhm.
even comprehend at this point, but it's just really profound. I want to spend a little time talking a little bit more about Sowa Rigpa and Tibetan Ayurveda, because I know that this is something that's going to be very new to a lot of my listeners, including myself. What is it? How does this come about? You said that your partner was one of the first to bring it over to the West. Can you tell us a little bit about what the fundamentals are here?
Yeah, Tibetan medicine, Sowa Rigpa, is a healing science. It's been passed down in a lineage from the medicine Buddha, who really created a compendium and an understanding and archive of wisdom for all things medical, but also for things that affect not only the body, but the mind and the spirit. And so an understanding of how these three correlate and really have to be addressed simultaneously to affect real healing on a fundamental and foundational level. That's intrinsic to the entire teaching and lineage of this science. Sua actually means nourishing, and Rigpa means awareness. And so nourishing awareness. And what are we nourishing awareness of? It's our own innate healing wisdom that expresses itself and is always speaking to us. And sometimes we don't listen as well as we could. But when we do, we become sovereign over our health and we receive the messages and the inspiration and the understanding that we need to stay healthy and to eat the right foods and be in the right places and experience the right elements of nature. And all of those things contribute to us having health and vitality and staying healthy. I was just going to say diet is also a very big part of Sowa Rigpa. If you know, food as medicine. All of the botanicals that we use are edible, obviously. They're part of what we can eat. And as we incorporate these different elements into our diet, we can keep our health on a healing trajectory that continues. And that's really the beauty of Tibetan medicine, is it helps people to get onto that trajectory, which can be continued just by good lifestyle and healthy diet. It's not a continuous need for these medicines that you're going to be beholden to for the rest of your life, which has been a challenge with expressing Sowa Rigpa in a Western world, because most businesses are focused on profit, which would mean repeat customers. And about 40% of our customers, when they order a protocol for the first time, they don't have to come back and order more products because they've attained the benefits they needed. They're in an upward spiral and they can continue that. And that for me has been huge difference in comparison with Sowa Rigpa and Western medicine.
Can you tell us a little bit about how you discovered cannabinoids and then what that process was of learning it in the first place?
Yeah, I discovered CBD. I actually moved to Washington State and was able to get a job with the disability I was on, working 20 hours a month. And so I got a job at a local cannabis store. And it was a medical dispensary, and started to learn from the different producers and processors that would come through there with their product. I went through some health issues at the time. So just a lot of pain. I was on a walker at the time and using a walking stick, and they would come in and see me there, and they naturally want to help me because most of the people that are cultivating cannabis, have a big heart. And I started using different things and found one product that was given to me, which was called RSO, or CBD RSO. And the gentleman who gave it to me said, use a tenth of this 1 gram tube and use it 3 times a day and see how that goes. And I did it for about 30 days, and over that 30 days was able to stop taking the opiate medication that I'd been on for a long time, and was able to get out and walk in a park for the first time without pain and without having to take a painkiller. Different things were coming back slowly, and I was noticing a difference. And then I started to experiment with other cannabinoid products and really was interested in what made one product different from another. If it's all CBD, then what's the difference, right? And started to see that terpenes were the difference. And I began to experiment with different products, with different combinations of terpenes, and found different benefits. I had ADHD for a long time, and specific types of terpenes with CBD would take the ADHD away and help me to focus and get into a flow state. Different terpenes would help with my PTSD, with calming my anxiety and helping me to relax and just take it down a few notches. And other terpenes that were helpful for the actual relieving of the pain, the analgesic pain relief, as well as the inflammation relief. And so I, over time, began working with one of these processing companies, and they allowed me to use their $1 million lab, which had a huge terpene lab in there. And I started to experiment with different terpenes and use them within our own circle and our own family and in formulations, and had great success with it. Cannabinoids really helped me to get back up on my feet and get back into the swing of things. But it wasn't until really experiencing Tibetan Botanicals that I started to experience my mind and my spirit healing from what I'd been through. The physical ailments were starting to dissolve, but the mind and the spirit aspect were not. And Tibetan medicine really opened up and started to help process things on an innate level that I wasn't able to do myself with my knowledge that I'd acquired up until that point. But now the benefits of Tibetan medicine have extended my healing much more than I thought was possible, or any of my doctors thought was possible. I can weight bear now, I can lift weights, I can ride a bike again. Wow. I can actually run, which nobody ever thought would be possible. And so my life's very active. I get to run with my Siberian Husky and go out into the park and chase her around the dog park and do all the things that I wasn't able to do before. And that was thankful to a formula actually that our Tibetan physician made, which is called White Tiger, which took took away the arthritic pain that I had in multiple areas of my body and really helped with the regeneration of my joints and my ligaments and even my cartilage that had been severely damaged. So there was a difference, and I noticed as soon as I started experiencing Tibetan medicine that was the case, and it just confirmed what I had thought from the beginning, that there's an ocean of healing out there that we haven't tapped into, and we really needed to find a way to tap into that. And Amchi Tupten Lekshi, he's our tap into that.
Cannabis, as well as cannabinoids and a lot of the terpenes associated with the cannabis plant, very understudied for obvious reasons. Everybody knows it still remains a Schedule 1 drug. It's been very, very difficult for it to really get the kind of clinicals against it that it probably should have because of just the vilification of this plant from so many years ago. Hopefully things will start changing soon, and at least there have been doors opened in terms of medical dispensing and now even recreational usage and whatnot in pretty much multiple states in the United States. Can't speak for around the world because I'm sure that definitely varies. I think that a lot of people know that there are so many benefits, and it's kind of a shame that a lot of times we can't really talk about them because, or a lot of people are skeptical because those studies don't exist, and it's a chicken and the egg. What would you think is like the holy grail in terms of trying to get this out into the world and let this message be known so that more people can experience healing?
Yeah, botanicals that we use are very rare and precious, a lot of them, and they only come from very specific places in the world. And so for a long time, there hasn't been the cultivation areas that could provide enough of a harvest from many of these botanicals for it to be offered to the public in the way that we do now. Amchi identified that that wasn't possible when he first returned from Tibet and going through his training there, and has been waiting for a time when we'd be able to do that. In preparation for that, about 30 or 40 years ago, he set up an institute called Tanaduk Institute in alignment with the Dalai Lama and other Tibetan physicians, which went out and helped to set up preservation areas and cultivation areas really all throughout the Himalayas, which have continued until this day. And a lot of the botanicals that are used in the Tibetan pills and the formulations that we have come from those areas. And so there's been a lot of preemptive work that's gone into making what we're doing now possible. All of the botanicals are sourced directly by Amchi. He works directly with all of the cultivars and suppliers, and many of them he's worked for many decades. There's a relationship there that's really pure and beautiful, and they're always most focused on making sure that we have the highest vibrational, cleanest, most organic medicine possible. There's things that go into that, like ensuring that there aren't heavy metals and other contaminants, and doing a due diligence and testing the different botanicals and formulations. I see that the potential is there for there to be a union of the best of modern benefits of medicine and our ancient lineage-based plant medicines, because there's things that Tibetan medicine can't do. Tibetan medicine couldn't have saved my leg. They didn't have the surgical ability and the hardware and all that to put in there, but at the same time, Western medicine wasn't able to help me to regenerate where possible from that injury. And so the two together were really needed. And so I see that there's potential for a union of both modalities to come together to bring the best of both worlds and to give people an alternative to chemicals and pharmaceuticals, because in my experience, they made things a lot worse before I was able to get them to become better. And so having an alternative that's safe and that doesn't interact with Western pharmaceuticals is really important. And it's one thing that Tibetan medicine takes very seriously, with a basic premise to do no harm, which means not to cause any adverse reactions or negative reactions or side effects from any of their formulation. And, for the last 4 years doing this with Tibetan medicine, I haven't come across one experience with interactions or anybody having an adverse effect from the products, which is a testament to the safety and the amount of time that's gone into making sure that the synergy of each of the products is there for everyone to be able to receive the benefits.
I would love for you to talk for a minute about Sowa Rigpa and the kinds of botanicals that are harvested. And I understand that they're harvested in Tibet by monks, and just the intention and the way that it's cultivated. I would love for you to speak a little bit about just the preciousness of the process, because I was profoundly intrigued, and I
Yeah.
felt so grateful for the love that is put into every single step. And that's, it becomes important too, of every drop that goes into these
It
bottles. Can you
does.
talk for
Yeah.
a minute about the plants themselves, the process, and then how it is in terms of Ayurveda, the codification of the botanicals, in knowing what they're for and how they can help what?
Yeah, the process for creating Tibetan pill medicines, which is where the botanicals and the monasteries are mostly going to, is very beautiful. It starts with the Lama physicians and the monks going up into the Himalayas and the cultivation areas. They offer pujas, spiritual blessing ceremonies, and communicate with the elemental spirits and offer prayers and ask for permission to come and to harvest the plants. There's an intelligent communication that happens in both directions through the entire process. And with great care and love, they bring what's needed from the cultivation areas back to the monasteries, and it goes through prayer and puja and blessing ceremonies. Depending on what's being created for different amounts of time, some of the medicines are prayed over and blessed for a full moon cycle, with monks constantly performing healing mantras and preparing the herbs for use by their patients. It's profound, beautiful, and I haven't experienced it with any other way that I've witnessed medicine being created. It's really made with so much pure intention and love for people to heal on a mind, body, and spirit level, and that intention is continually projected into the process of making the medicines. The botanical side of things is really Amchi's domain. I'm learning, and I have been at a rapid pace for the past 4 years, many early mornings and late nights, but his understanding isn't just based on Tibetan medicine. It's based on multiple different ethnobotanical pharmacology practices. He's traveled throughout the world and experienced different cultures throughout the Americas, throughout Europe and Africa, and he's tapped into that wisdom and knowledge with their sages and brought the gems and the pearls back and incorporated those into his Western understanding of medicine, going through formal training in naturopathy and attending Bastyr University, and then going to the Himalayas and becoming a Tibetan medicine physician. Now he has the benefit of the pharmacological background with full pharmacology training, as well as his clinical experience as a physician. And so seeing both sides of the coin, as well as having this plethora of wisdom and knowledge from the botanical and mineral kingdoms, and the support of a large group of Amchis within Sowa Rigpa that all work together and share the information and wisdom that's been passed down to them.
I love that you say that every formula is created with life force energy in the bottle. And so talk a little bit more about that, because I know that the intention, the prayers, and all of this is one of, I guess, the sacredness of how the plants are treated, and the love helps to create energy that is much higher vibration for
Yes.
the plant cultivation and every, I suppose, step in the what we would call the supply chain. But at every step there's just love and very healing intentions going throughout, and not necessarily one that's just about, let's just mass produce this as much as we can, let's fill these plants with a bunch of pesticides or what have you. It's not that. It's really like, let it live, let it grow, let it flourish, and then let us harvest with this intention of healing for this circularity. So is that what you mean by life force energy in a bottle, or is it something more than that?
It is. That's part of it. Another part of it, which is really important to mention about terpenes, is what drew Amchi to us is our understanding of terpenes, which was just purely by experience. But he'd experienced the same thing with terpenes as a physician, learning from the master Tibetan physicians, back when he was studying. And he witnessed and could actually see, because he has the perception and ability to communicate with plants on that level, he could see the life force energy of the plants leaving the plants as they were being dried and harvested. And he asked one of the head physicians and asked for an understanding of what this was. And he said that this is the life force energy leaving the plant. And he would later come to understand that those are terpenes. And so terpenes are revered as the life force energy of plants, which were lost for a long time in traditional botanical formulation because of the drying process. But now with the advent of the hemp industry and the cannabis industry, we have this huge blossoming terpene industry, and terpene isolates are being created that are largely keeping intact that life force energy because they're being done with proper practices. And so bringing those terpenes back to traditional formulations has really advanced the expression of Tibetan medicine. It's brought back the life force energy into the plants. We went to an Ayurvedic conference last year, and the head Ayurvedic doctor there, Dr. Vasant Lad, came and he looked at our products and was very gracious. We took some pictures with him, and then he got up and gave his keynote address. And about halfway through the address, he went really quiet, and he said, everybody went really quiet. And after the silence, he said, everybody comes and says, mind, body, mind, body, mind, body. And that's great. But what about the spirit? And all these doctors, all these physicians just went really quiet, like, what's he talking about? And he expressed that terpenes, what we were doing, was something really special, and encouraged people to come over and check out what we were doing, because he could see that bringing terpenes back into the formulation was restoring this aspect of healing that had been lost over time. And so that's part of the life force energy. Another part of it is just the way that we process every formula, even the water that goes into to it. The water is encoded with Schumann frequencies and golden Fibonacci sequences and celestial quartz and Herkimer diamonds that come from a property that we were going to grow hemp on, actually, on the crystal grid in Arkansas. And when we went to plant the hemp, we found all these massive crystals. Some of them you see on the altar behind me. Beautiful, big celestial quartz. And we thought, we can't plant hemp here. We're going to kill a bunch of crystals. And so we didn't end up planting the hemp there, but we harvested some of the crystals and we used those to potentiate our water and to increase the life force energy expression in all of our formulas.
I also want to take a moment to talk about sustainability, because I know that that's also a big part of how you operate Jampha Tibetan Pharmacy. Can you tell us a little bit about the steps that you take to ensure regeneration?
Yeah, we're very conscious of that. Amchi is very engaged in making sure that we are continuing to have an abundant supply of whatever we're using, and we have contingencies in place. The benefit of his pharmacology experience is there's multiple herbs that can perform the same function within a formula. And so as one herb becomes less available or out of season, we can switch to another botanical and maintain the efficiency of the formulas. And so that gives us some flexibility and allows us to use some Western herbs in place of Tibetan or Eastern herbs where possible that are clean and vibrant. And we're opening up areas now and communications and working on creating some of these areas in the US where cultivation can take place, where we can have some control over the soil and the way that things are done and make things more accessible for us here in the US, but still in alignment with the traditional practices of cultivation and preservation that have been really kept for the entire period of Sowa Rigpa.
I wanted to talk a minute about something that you also sent to me, which is the happiness of mind pills. So you've got not only different tinctures, you have Auric mist, which this one is called rose gold, charged prana for our auric bodies. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about the aura in a moment, but I wanted to talk first about these happiness of mind pills. The Tibetan name, I'm going to butcher this, but it says Sem-kyi De-kyid Simde. I'm like nervous that I might be like, completely butchering that. Inspiring harmony between the heart and mind. Can't everybody use a little bit more happiness in their lives these days?
They really can. Those are really amazing pills. They're used by probably one of the most used pills in Tibetan medicine. The Dalai Lama himself has mentioned on a few occasions that he has those every morning. And they just bring your mind and your heart into a really beautiful, coherent state. And when you're in that place of peace and contentment, it's easier to get things done. Less thoughts and more being. And that's really what those pills help to establish. As well as the physical, medical benefits of them as well. They're very targeted towards the heart for people that have arrhythmia and different types of heart conditions. Very soothing to anxiety and trauma or PTSD, things of that nature. And also to people that just have an overactive mind. It will help to calm it down a little bit and bring back some quietness and some balance.
So let's talk a little bit about the auric field as well, and how some of these items, particularly the mists, I've seen quite a few and I've been blessed with being given some essential oil mists that are for various aspects of the auric field, cleansing the auric field. And I know a lot of people do sage to help to cleanse the space in the auric field. Tell us what that's about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, the magic ingredient in the auric mist is our Ormus. Ormus is alchemical substance that's been around for thousands of years. It's most popular in Egyptian, been used by Egyptian pharaohs and kings. They found a bunch of it in the king's chamber. It's revered as an anti-aging superfood and as a way to enhance consciousness and awareness and really accelerate spiritual development. And we follow a method that Amchi's given us for creating Ormus ourselves. And so we have an area set up in our lab that has Faraday cage attached to it with solfeggio generating frequency machines that plug Schumann frequencies directly into the Ormus as it's potentiating. And so we have that's been created, and different mantras and sacred processors are employed to make sure that Ormus is as high vibrational as possible. And we use that Ormus to empower the auric mist, which is also using Bulgarian rose hydrosol. Bulgarian rose is very well known for its healing benefits to the emotional body. It's one of the highest terpene contents of any flower, any botanical really. And so the marriage of those two gives emotional support and clearing, and the auric mist really awakens and enlivens the entire auric field. There's more studies there's lots of studies that you can look up online. There's a few of them that are on blogs on our website. The scientific evidence for it is still kind of out there because the experience within the labs has defied modern science and they haven't been able to explain why it does the things that it does. But it's a very unique and powerful mineral supplement. It's derived from Dead Sea salts. It goes through an alchemical process to extract from those salts monoatomic gold and monoatomic elements, and basically a clear water will turn into a very cloudy, milky substance that's thick and almost like a gel, and that becomes Ormus, and that then is dried down into a powder and becomes
Wow.
monoatomic gold powder. And
And
so that's
that's
the secret ingredient in that, and a lot of our formulas.
no wonder it's so special. So I'm sure that some people who are listening are like, okay, it can't be any more than just the placebo effect. I'm talking about like the people that are just, they have no clue what this is all about. They think it's woo woo. They think it's just like, yeah, they'd rather take a Vicodin or what have you for their pain. What would you say as in terms of a way to open the door? Like, what is that little crack in the door that can be like, okay, I see you. I was once you. I get it. And this is something that is viable.
Mm.
I see you smiling over there.
Yeah, because my mother popped into my mind. Honestly, my mom, you should have a conversation with
Let's
her.
talk about mom.
Let's talk about mom. As a young man, I smoked cannabis. That was one of the things that I did. And my mom caught me a few times and she was like, she was
Ah,
Mormon. I grew up as a
yeah,
Mormon. It was very not
trouble.
good to do that in a Mormon family. And it was bad. And so my whole life, there's been this stigma to it. Well, at the same time I went through my ankle injury, she had a pineal gland tumor in her brain and she had to have surgery to have it removed. And she developed 2 clots in her visual cortex during the surgery, which burst and she stroked out and died on the table, lost her vision completely and was an invalid, had to learn how to do everything over again. And she really did not want to be here. She didn't want to live her life like that. And part of my journey was really focused on finding solutions for her to be able to regain her vision, which she didn't think was possible. And so it took her a year to agree to take something with CBD in it because of the stigma of growing up and the way she felt about cannabis. But finally she accepted and she started to use the formulas and her health started to restore in miraculous ways. She started to map neurons in her visual cortex when she'd do her eye tests that were starting to fire again and she was able to see. And she'd been told by every neural ophthalmologist in the country that we'd sent her to that it's impossible to regenerate neurons in the visual cortex. And so she's come full circle now. She's experienced the healing of this Tibetan medicine, specifically a formula we make called White Elephant, which our auntie made for my mother. About 4 or 5 months after we started formulating together, he said, "What should we make next?" Like a excited school kid. And I went, "Oh, what should we make next?" And we'd thrown ideas around and my mom was just weighing heavy on my heart. And I said, I don't want to be selfish, Amshula, but my mother's an amazing woman. She's been through a lot. She's been told by the neural ophthalmologist that we sent her to that she can't get her sight back. And he said, "What's wrong with her sight?" And I said, "Oh, she's lost all of her neurons in her visual cortex." And he went, "So you want to get her sight back?" And I said, "Yeah." And he went, "Yeah, we can do that." And I thought, okay, dude. Okay. That's how I felt. I feel bad for feeling that way now, but it took him close to a year and he formulated White Elephant and we sent the first batch to my mom. She started taking it. I remember the first time we sent her the batch, she was going on a trip and she said, "Oh, I'll use this while I'm in my wheelchair while I'm traveling. So, I can find the guy that's supposed to wheel me around," because she was going to Costa Rica. The last time that she went on a trip was a year and a half after starting taking that formula. It was 2 months ago and she went on a trip around Asia for 3 months. She traveled by herself. She went to an orphanage that she hadn't been to in 12 years that she helped sponsor and raise money for in Cambodia and did all the things in her life that she never thought would be possible again. And she kept sending me messages throughout the whole trip saying, "You know what the most beautiful thing about my trip is, son?" I'd say, "What's that, Mom?" She'd say, "When people tell me, 'Marianne, you're back,' because all of her friends had just experienced her as this missing pieces of her, and now she'd regained that back. And that was the greatest gift to her, not even the sight, but just to have her friends recognize that she was back and she checked back into her life and she was taking control. And, that for me has been a very personal testament to the power of Tibetan medicine because it was where for who I care the most about. And to see her now thriving is more motivation to create more things that will help other people who are in similar situations find hope.
Aw, sending so much love to mom.
Love you, Mom.
Now, Trinn, not only do you have the product line, but you also are available for consultations. Can you tell us about what that process is like?
Yeah, a lot of people have questions. We have a
Mm.
lot of products, a lot of things that address symptoms or areas of the body. So sometimes people have a hard time deciding what would be best. And so we offer consultation services where we can answer questions and help to set up a protocol of the best products to support your healing. The truth is, none of the products are going to heal
Mhm.
you, but you're going to heal yourself. And the products are really doing two things. They're going to awaken your own innate healing ability, which is dormant within a lot of us, but definitely present within all of us, and then support that innate healing guidance with botanicals and minerals that speak the same language as our biochemistry. They are able to support our healing with profound accuracy and safety. It just is a matter of giving our bodies enough time to integrate and have that experience. So we offer, consultations are at heal.me/Jampha, or you can just search for consultations for Tibetan medicine on heal.me and you'll find us. And we're offering free consultations. If you just mention the Human Beauty Movement podcast, we'll comp your consultation and you will not be charged.
All you beautiful humans out there listening, Trinn is extending a special offer just for you so that you can explore Jampha's holistic solutions firsthand. All you need to do is use discount code THEHBM20, that's THEHBM20, and you'll get 20% off your first order on jampha.com. That's JAMPHA.com. It does exclude the Tibetan pills, but if you also go and visit heal.me/Jampha and mention the HBM as Trinn just mentioned, your consultation fee will be waived for up to a 30-minute one-on-one consultation with Trinn. Trinn, thank you so much for being part of the movement. I love everything that you're doing. I love your story, and I so appreciate the impact that you are having on the world. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the opportunity. It's been a wonderful experience.
Thank you for listening to the Human Beauty Movement podcast. Be sure to follow, rate, and review us wherever you stream podcasts. The Human Beauty Movement is a community-based platform that cultivates the beauty of humankind. Check out our workshops, find us on social media, and share our inspiration with all the beautiful humans in your life. Learn more at thehumanbeautymovement.com. Thank you so much for being a beautiful human.